Hi guys, welcome to Windsome Cottage Garden. My name is Hannah and I'm so glad that you decided to join me today. We're in the cottage garden today and I thought we would do a late May garden tour. Now I'm pretty sure you're going to be seeing this June 1st, but this is being filmed Memorial Day weekend. We did an early May garden tour, which I will link below, but spring is just such a time of fast growth and things of beauty that I thought it would be a good idea to do another one now and probably another one at the end of June when other things start coming into bloom. So we are down by the water right now. I thought what we would do a little bit different than our other garden tours is work our way up the yard and then also go around to the front to check out a few things of beauty there. We are in zone 6A, West Michigan. We're on an inland lake, which is pretty close to Lake Michigan. We're within about 2 miles of the lakeshore, which means we're a little bit delayed compared to other parts of the state and even our home garden. If you're new to my channel, welcome. In this channel, we document 2 gardens, the cottage garden, where I am now, as well as my home garden, which is about 90 minutes south of here. Also close to the lakeshore, but it's actually a 6B versus a 6A, and we're several weeks further along. So it's always kind of a treat coming from the home garden up here and seeing some of the things that have bloomed out back home here, just in their glory. Like for instance, you can probably already see we have a lilac standard. Now this is a Miss Kim Korean lilac standard, and I can smell it from here, and I'm probably 30 feet away. There's a lot of things I want to show you in this video. I think we'll be focusing on things in bloom and do a more comprehensive tour towards the end of June with the state of things in the yard. You might see as we kind of get closer to some of the beds that we're a little behind in our spring maintenance. We were really good until probably the end of April, beginning of May, when between my sister graduating, my dad coming downstate and helping me take some trees down, build some vegetable beds, and then plant some new trees. And then also my sister who graduated is also moving to Chicago for a job, helping her get ready to do that. There hasn't been a ton of time in this garden spent, but that is going to change this month, and just check back at the end of June when everything is going to be looking really, really good. There are things looking spectacular right now, even if there's a couple more weeds around them than there normally is. So let's go take a closer look at those. Before I head up, I always like to do a check-in on the water. You can actually see we have a little snake friend. They like to sun themselves. I think this is just a little garter snake. He's just a baby. They're kind of weird in the water if you've ever seen them. But it's a slightly overcast day. It wasn't breezy until I came down here, and now it is picking up. But you can see the dock is mostly in. We still have to get 2 pieces in, which you'll see in a moment. But as I pan around and kind of give you a view, the vegetable garden is looking a little overgrown, but we are going to be in here today planting. So this is going to be completely taken back. But more than the vegetable garden, I want to check in the bridal veil spirea. You might remember we moved these earlier this year. They used to be right about there behind that lilac tree. And these are quite old shrubs. They're probably 13 plus years old, and they've been in that spot at least 10 years. And it really was a little small for them. We decided to transplant them while they were still dormant and move them down here to create an extra kind of, well, beautiful hedge, but then also privacy to the vegetable garden for when we're working on it and our neighbors are using their yard. At the time, I said I didn't think they'd skip a beat, and lo and behold, they still bloomed out so well. Now, if you know what bridal veil spirea looks like, this isn't quite the arches they are known for, in part because these were very clumped together in their old location. They have a couple of the archy type bits. Let's see if I can find one. I actually think they might be on our neighbor's side because we put a good side to them. But over time, they will, kind of form those arches they are known for. And they're called bridal veil spirea. Here's a mini one, because they'll have huge branches that arch like this, and when they're all covered in flowers, they look like a bridal veil. Now, these flowers in and of themselves are fairly simple, but when you kind of look at them at a whole, they create this beautiful mound. These guys all took to their spots really well. They still have some flowers that still get to come out, and I honestly wasn't even expecting them to look this good this year, especially considering we moved them and how small the root systems are. But these have very fibrous root systems and took to moving really, really well. If we kind of come up along that, you can see right now the lilacs are what are looking so good. We have a couple lilacs up here. One's already bloomed out, but our Miss Kim Korean lilacs, where we have this standard and then 3 over there, are all looking fabulous. We'll go take a closer look. In this bed, other things of note are rhubarb. We've had rhubarb crumble after rhubarb crumble. My mom is trying to figure out some other things she can do, though the stalks are getting a little bit woody now. I know this is, I think they like a slightly colder climate, but this one in particular has loved its spot. We have a second one here. They were planted at the same time, and this one hasn't loved its spot as much, but it's getting there. In this bed, we also have peonies that have big buds and are probably going to take out soon. I don't know if that one is caged, so I should do that. And our iris are blooming. You will see in so many places, and we'll go look at them a lot closer. The iris are just looking so beautiful right now. I can't remember if it was last year or the year before, but we did plant a good number of iris from Shriner, which is a breeder in the US. I know I have all their names. I also know I will not remember them. So what I'm going to do is we'll kind of look at this stuff closer when we get to it, and then I will look up the name and put it below. Some of them are flowering, a good number, but not all of them. And it's just so good right now. I love iris. They're one of my favorite spring flowers. And so what you'll see in this tour are probably would be considered early bloomers. And then there's some that will bloom all the way through the end of June as well. I do want to mention is I suspect we're going to be taking these blueberry plants out. We have 6 in here, and they have honestly never liked this spot. They've never thrived. Only one of them put on blooms this year. I think it was this one. Yes. And you can see there's actually a couple, actually 6 berries that you can see right there. And those are the extent of the berries. They look so sad. I think we're going to attempt to pot them up. It's not really something I have space for at my house, though I might see if I can sneak 2 of them in somewhere. But for the remaining ones, I have a brother and his partner who are going to be looking for a house in the next 9 months. So next spring they should be in it, hopefully, and they would definitely want these. So if we can pot them up, keep them happy in a holding area until next year, which if you've been following our channel, you know we do that. We overwinter things for sometimes for multiple seasons. Then they would be a nice addition to their house. Other things that are looking good that are worth pointing out. We have 2 iris here, this one, and up here, this one, that are both from my city garden, which we sold last fall, and I took splits from things. I can't remember what this color is. I think it's a 2-toned, like light blue and dark blue one, and I am not seeing any buds, which isn't surprising. I think sometimes it can take them a season or 2 to settle before they really put on growth. But this one, which is a white iris, and it's not super tall, which is good, is putting up some blooms. And I think it will be really pretty compared to everything else in here. The star, though, as I mentioned, is this Miss Kim lilac tree standard. Now, this is quite an old lilac tree. It was actually planted in 2008 at the house my parents lived in at that time, because it was bought when they dropped me off for college and then moved here in 2011. And it has been here ever since. And it just loves its spot. We did trim it up probably 2 or 3 years ago because it was you couldn't see any of the structure, which I think is kind of cool to see underneath. And oh my gosh, it just smells so good. Miss Kim Korean lilacs, they have a really small, you see them a lot in commercial landscaping. They have a very small, like, bloom. Usually the panicles are like a lot bigger. But the pollinators love them. Don't know if you see that one. He's kind of behind. The pollinators love them, and they still smell amazing. We had planted some hollyhocks in here that have never bloomed, but they keep surviving. So that's good. There's some mushrooms that have popped up overnight because we got a lot of rain. Our rum raisin lupin came back. Our millennium alliums are doing really well. This guy is called like speeding again. He is not from my house, but he's a really pretty blue one. Then we have some light purple iris that I do not know the name of over here, as well as, it's worth noting, right down here is a white glitter Hydrangea that has been eaten back so many times. I'm always amazed when I see it come back. Oh, and this right here is actually a phlox that we planted last year when I moved as well. Moving along. This is the bed that the bridal veil spirea was in, and there's a really big hole that they left. I need to go in and weed, obviously. There's a lot of purple coneflowers coming up in there in an area we don't want them. But we are going to deck this out with dahlias this year, as we kind of think about what more we might want to add to the spot later on. Also in this bed looking great are some lupins. These are a true blue lupin that I actually got from my work in a bed they were clearing out, and a bonus columbine came. I've been kind of waiting to see what color it was. It's a really pretty purpley one. I love columbine, though they can be a little finicky. They also get eaten by like small green worms. They're very susceptible to that. So I've tried them a couple times at my old house and they just got decimated. And I'm thrilled to see this one looking so good. We also have a black iris that is just beginning to poke out. This one didn't bloom last year. This is a Shriner iris, so I'm really excited to see it. I think this one, can't remember what this one's called, to be honest. But we have a couple of different black ones that we'll show you. I think it's like this is either Raven's Girl or Mr. something something. I'll look it up and pop it on the bottom. So, and we'll be able to show you that hopefully in the later tour. We have some daffodils that need to be cut back. We also have a number of iris over here. Now this one, I don't remember it being supposed to be this bright color, but it is gorgeous and it's huge. Like, I don't know if I can really show you. I bet it is, my hand for comparison, 4 to 5 inches wide. Now these are just, this is another Shriner iris, and it is just gorgeous. I'm interested in cutting these back because I feel like there is supposed to be another pocket of iris in here. I'm not seeing them. They could be underneath this, or it could be this pocket. There was one that we ended up buying, the rhizome we bought originally didn't survive, so we bought some off Etsy, and if that's them, then they definitely gave us the wrong iris. I think it's more likely it's this one, but it doesn't have a bloom this year. Just keep an eye on it. We have this guy, which I thought this was a blue iris, and maybe it will be once it comes out, but it looks pretty black right now. We'll look up what it's called later. This one is a really pretty purple one. It is also tall, guys. I bet this panicum is 4 feet tall, maybe a little bit more. But look at the beard. Now, the beard is what is this orange thing? It's like purpley black. I think these are sepals. I think they're called sepals. But these purpley black sepals really contrast with that bright orange beard. They've got some really pretty striations, and then the standards are a lighter purple that just complete it. It's also a good size. Hand for comparison. Not sure. And it has 3 buds per stem. It is looking so pretty. Now over here, this is actually my favorite one that has come out. We have some more of these light purple ones that I'm going to try and tag so we can take them out, because they were in this area when we tried to take them out. There were a couple of rhizomes we clearly missed. I'll take them to my house because I don't have any of this guy. But this one right here is the first iris that blooms each year. It's another Shriner iris one. And it's just so fun. It reminds me of like Dancer with like the ruffly, super ruffly sepals with that white edging and purple. That just makes it look so cool. When I planted these We intended it, the way I planted it in order was earliest bloomer to latest bloomer. And as you can kind of see, they're all up right now, which is kind of expected. We also have in here some creeping geranium that is doing well. The pollinators are covering it as well. We have a peony that's going to be blooming soon. Definitely be able to see it in the next tour. And once we get the weeds up and the dahlias in here, this is going to be a bed full of beauty. There's really beauty in so many different areas we're going to be looking at, so I'll try not to say that too much. But I mean it, even if I don't say it. Oh, and it's just filled with so many good smells. June, and then May, beginning of June is my favorite time in the garden. There's just so much looking good. And including this bed. Now, this is a bed that we've spent a lot of time on. I actually have a playlist dedicated to this bed. If you want to watch it over the last 2 years, I'll link the whole playlist below. But I am thrilled to see some of the Miss Kim lilacs in here blooming. These are another one that we did move probably, when did we move these? 3 years ago? It blends a little bit together. But last year we did a bit of a rejuvenation prune where we kind of hybridized a couple methods. And there is some rootstock growing and they're filling out pretty well. And we're just going to have to figure out what we want to do, if we want to leave them for a year or continue on as we kind of intended to in doing another rejuvenation prune this year. These are all Miss Kim lilacs. We have 3, 1, 2, 3 in this area, and they had all been planted right, let's see which one. This one is the only one that didn't move. They were all planted right here, and as you can kind of see, they were a little misshapen because they were way too close together. We spread them out, and this one actually has something growing in it. I think it's like a wild honeysuckle that we're going to have to figure out, but they all do have really good basal growth coming through. And we're going to let that go. And hopefully in 5-ish years, they'll have that beautiful rounded shape that you want to see in Miss Kim lilacs. Now, we also have in this bed some Penstemon that is starting to put up bloom stalks. And then in the front here, they're not looking all that big right now, but we have Russian sage and hibiscus planted together. And everything came back really well. Though this one over here, I think is probably not getting quite as much sun as it would like, but it's still trucking and looking good. Oh, every once in a while I get a whiff of the lilac. Yeah, so this I'm pretty sure is wild bush honeysuckle. We're gonna have to figure out how we get it out of that. But moving along, this is an area that we had a lot of rain in the last like 4 or 5 days. So you're gonna see mushrooms that have literally popped up like in the last week out of nothing, which is kind of annoying, but you know, we haven't picked them out yet, but we will quite soon because we don't want them to spore more than they already are. So ignore the mushrooms, but do pay attention. Froggy hydrangea, which is looking a little sad, but in general survived really well. We also have another iris here that this was another early bloomer. This is called Harvest of Memory. We actually have it in 2 places. So some of them have obviously aged out, but here's a really pretty one that is looking so beautiful. And these are huge flowers that provide such a pretty pop of light yellow, especially when compared to the Miss Kim lilac here. Walk around, it is worth noting our beautiful thundercloud hemlock is in bloom. I love these little blooms. They're a pretty little bright spot when you get close. And they're like a really shocking pop of pink. Now this hemlock is thornless. Not hemlock. This hawthorn, I don't know if I said hemlock earlier. This hawthorn is thornless, which is really nice. And it's kind of an understory plant here, but that hasn't really affected it too much. It's still got these really pretty pops all along its branches. You can see our Japanese iris, which these don't bloom until end of June, beginning of July. We transferred these from my city garden when it sold, and they have all took. We divided, I think there was like 3. It was really one big stand that I divided into 3. Didn't miss a beat. But this has been the unexpected surprise of the iris. Look how beautiful that is. I'm not sure the color is like truly coming through, it is very black. And it's looking a little more purple in my screen, which it does have definitely tones of purple, but it is truly striking. Maybe this one that is just opening up, you can see it a little bit more. This is either Mr. Tuxedo or Raven's Girl. Like I said, I'm going to pop the name of it if it was part of our Shriner Iris haul here so you can look them up. But this guy, I think, has been my favorite that we've gotten so far. I'm a sucker for black plants. My mom usually doesn't like them, but this is just so striking that she comments on it every time she sees it. And it's kind of fun to see the yellow and the miskim, but it's also a really pretty contrast here as well to the miskim lilac. Jumping ahead, we are going to skip over some sections we still haven't picked up this project again. It's on the docket in the near future to get done. Oh, you can see here we just have so many lupins that have self-seeded and spread themselves around. And they're one of my favorite, I keep saying that. These are one of my favorite spring flowers, but they really are this time, I promise. We've got some smaller thrift here that's being a little overtaken. We have a peony, and I'll show you it up there, that flopped. It wasn't staked in time, and we gotta figure out what we're gonna do. But speaking of peonies, here is our earliest bloomer. It is this bright red one with really pretty bright yellow stamens. It doesn't have much of a scent, but when you're this pretty, do you need one? We also have an unusual bicolored lupin here. Now this is a hybrid of some sort. This was a seedling I transferred here, not realizing, frankly, it looked like this. I can't decide if I like it or not. There is something really interesting about it. I like especially right there. Once it kind of comes out, it looks a little bad tie-dye-y. But then you see things like this and I think, well, that's pretty cool. Maybe it can stay. So we've kept it going, and it's down here while our more traditional lupins are up there. We have another Harvest of Memory iris there. There is a Shriner iris right here that didn't bloom last year, so we're really anxious to see it. And I'll have to look up and put what type it is. Underplanted with some, I think these are like a larger thrift as well. We have 2 of them. I think at one point we had 3. And I'd love to add a third back in because they add such a Dr. Seussical pop to this area. Right now you can also see our ground cover, which I have no idea what the name is blooming. So it's kind of filming this area with whimsy. It's a really pretty contrast to the different hostas we have here, especially when you add the heuchera in here and the hellebores, which are entering a really dark color story, beginning to push new leaves. This is a Princess Alexandra of Kent rose that we are going to move probably next year. But it's putting out a couple more blossoms. We planted it bare root last year, and it's taken to its spot, even if it's not getting quite as much sun as we would like it to get. Let's hop in there and I'll look at things a little bit closer. Right, we are in the backside. We do have some Houtunia in here that my dad is going to come through and try and spray. And I did want to point out that if you look in here, we've got some bad looking bits of the iris I want to take out, but it has kind of splayed. And I think it's so pretty to see this bright yellow bloom with the hellebore leaves, which have a lot of variegation. That is not a combo you see a lot, but it's beautiful. We also have a climbing clematis in here that we planted last year called a Josephine clematis. I'm going to figure out if I can get back there carefully. Look at this view. Isn't this pretty? Not the easiest place to reach. Now, obviously the clematis is doing really well, but I was hoping to see if there were any blooms. We'd kind of planted it here in the hopes that it would scramble up this serviceberry. I think it's, let's see if I can just help it a little bit here. No. Did it break? That probably broke. Let's do a more gentle wrap job and hope that I'm wrong. It didn't break. I'm not seeing any blooms yet. I think this is one. Oh, this is a sucker. Let's just follow it down and flip it out. So this is one that will probably see blooms later this summer is what I'm thinking. And over time, we're just going to come and train it and keep it kind of coming up this beautiful structure. Here's an aerial view of all the pretty things we've seen. Oh, so pretty. Look at that too, where you can see the other miskim and the lupines and the bright yellow of the iris. Another yellow iris. It's just so pretty. Moving along, we were just over there. You can see we've got hostas that are, this one's already putting up bloom stalks, but he looks nice and big. He came from my city house a long time ago when we took out a crabapple tree before I even thought I was going to be moving, and we brought him up here. I think I might wait a little while and next spring cut him in half and bring him to my house. He's right next to this yellow Ito peony, which is really pretty. Though personally, I hate the smell of it. It smells like a very strange soap that is not good, but it's pretty. It was supposed to have, it's very fragrant, and it was, which we knew. We just didn't realize that we didn't like the fragrance when we planted it this close to so many different things. We have a mini Morvet hydrangea, which last year suffered from scoliosis. I'm looking at it. I think it needs a little bit more iron, so that's good to note. But look at this area. It's looking so full and gorgeous. Oh, I did want to mention some exciting developments. Look, this is a wisteria bloom. There's a number of them. I said we were really hoping this would bloom this year, and it started. We have some wires, we're training it up. And it's got a lot of blooms up there. I think what we're going to do this year is, after it blooms, follow more training videos on how to properly prune it. We haven't done that. And I'm hoping that means next year there'll be even more blooms. But I cannot wait to see what these look like. One in particular, I'm going to watch closely to see how it develops. Now, I should mention, I'll have to look up the exact variety. I believe this is an American wisteria of some sort, which is not as invasive as others, like in aggressive root wise. It's still a wisteria, and over time we're hoping we can train it up and along the deck so it has a nice big spot to fill. In here we have some ornamental alliums that are doing really, really well. You can see there's Houtunia popping up in a couple places. It needs to be sprayed. But it is a really pretty contrast right here with the creeping Jenny that is forming a carpet. This red heuchera, I don't even remember what it is. We planted it in a video, so I could probably go back and find it. But then we have this variegated catchfly, which these are always so pretty in the spring with their like pink delicate flowers. And this one with the variegation in this area, it just provides a pop. We have the poet's wife here that, guys, look at all these blooms. This is going to be quite the show. There is one that's a little bit more along, but it's been, I think, nipped a little bit in the cold. But the rest should be good. Also, you can see that our Globe Master alliums are coming up. And they're going to be so pretty. This one is the furthest along. But you can see he's still got a way. Now, these guys will get... He'll get 4 or 5 inches and around and look so pretty. Oh, other things, we have some more of the catchfly up there. We have a scabiosa pincushion flower that is just kind of coming up, but once it starts going, it'll go all year. We had a salvia that is bloomed quite early, and there's still more to come, which will be really pretty to see. That's another one that the pollinators love. And this is actually the bare root Roald Dahl rose that we planted in a video not too long ago when we were doing some care of roses, and it has done really well this year. Looking very healthy and is taken to its spot quite well. We kind of look along this way. You can see there's more allium that are kind of coming up. We have another hydrangea here that is also suffering from some scoliosis. This is a clear sign of it. It is iron deficiency, and what you'll see is bleached looking leaves with the dark veining. This is a Nico blue, so this is what they should actually look like. And you can see we got lots of buds forming, so it's going to be quite a show. What I'll probably do is put some iron tone on this, and then also give it some chelated iron in liquid form to kind of give it an immediate shot, because the iron tone is slow release and it needs something a little bit sooner. This doesn't get a lot of sun, but if you ever saw something like this in a limelight, you would want to treat it right away, because these are prone to burning in the sun quite quickly. Over here we have our heritage iris in bloom. Now we call it that. They're looking a little flattened. We got some rain last night, so these sepals are not quite as upright as they normally are, and I'm not seeing any flesh. Well, there's a freshish bloom over there right next to this beauty, which is a Shriner iris. That is pretty to see. There's another one right here that is a different variety. Oh, look at that. That's kind of sad. I'm going to go save this. It is kind of hard to get to because it's a little damp. Oh, we have all these oak seedlings. I'm going to actually bring this inside because it is severed, but we will stick this in some water. Isn't that pretty? Oh, and I can show you the pretty example of the heritage iris. We call them this. At one point, my parents owned some property that they had intended to build on. We went in a different direction, actually built the cottage. So I think we can agree it was a great direction. But they owned it for a lot of my childhood. And it was 40 acres, and there was like the foundation of an old cabin that at one point, years and years and years ago, that had stood there. And right out front, in front of this cabin foundation, was 2 beds filled with these iris. So we think they're pretty old. We don't know anything about them, but every house we've ever lived in since probably 2004 has had these. And we've shared them with many, many people, and they're really pretty. We think they're a German iris, a little bit more delicate than like these guys. And they're just, what we call the heritage iris, pretty and plain. Now we did plant 3 iris in here. Let's see. This one, that one right there that I think is a light pink. And then I believe there's a third. Now there might be one here-ish. Or this, I'm not sure. This one, actually, wouldn't be surprised if this is it. I'm not seeing a bloom on it. But I could have also tucked it away. Let's see if I see anything up here since I'm in here. We have a Baptisia that's coming up. We have a Siberian yellow iris. And actually, I should acknowledge this beautiful variegated wigilia. Look at that. It is truly pretty. Oh, and actually, over here, we have a couple spirea. These plants up here. This is a evening primrose, which is one of my mom's favorites, and I can just see there the hint of a sand cherry we planted a couple years ago. Always interesting when you go into areas you don't normally I'm trying to figure out the best way to get out of here. Go into, unless you're doing like maintenance-y stuff, what the different vistas you see are and how they look. My legs are very wet because it's been very wet. But we're about to enter one of my favorite little hidden corners of the cottage garden, which is a side path. I've seen this, and you could even see it down when we were at the water. This is a viburnum. It's like a flat one. I think it might be an arrowhead viburnum. We call it the crazy viburnum because it actually flowers 3 times a year. This is its best one, and it's got these beautiful structural discs that are just covered in white blooms, and just adds a really beautiful bit of whimsy to this area, especially with the hostas. We have a peony here, nice pretty pink one that looks really cool against the painted ferns, as well as some astilbe and other things. But it acts as an anchor to this path, which we normally come from the other direction. Though it's really worth noting, look at this. This clematis is looking so cool. I don't know what this one's called, which is a bummer. is worth being celebrated. It almost looks, and it's again not coming up in the camera, but it almost looks iridescent with its color quality because it's red and pink, but then there's like a slight shimmer to it where they meet. That's like ultraviolet. Really pretty. And this right here is a Bloomerang lilac. Now it is on the tail end of its blooms. They're still filled with color and smells so good, but they're not looking as fresh as they did even a week ago. We also have a second clematis right here. That this area, if you're curious, I'll link a video below. We are trying a remediation technique for Houtunia, which is an invasive ground cover that's planted here. And so we had 2 clematis. This one we thought had died out. And I told my dad, I was like, I'm pretty sure I saw something. So we opened it back up. And sure enough, it wanted to live. So it had a little bit of a setback, but it'll make it a little bit further. Speaking of lilacs, we have the Bloomerang here, and we have an old-fashioned pink one right here that is, this hasn't bloomed yet. It's just beginning to open. Here's one that's more open, and this just smells so, so good. Oh, I wish you had smell-o-vision. It just smells utterly delightful. No, there's a lot of other really pretty things. Let me just show you. To top dress this path, but if you ignore that, look at the layering in this picture right here. We have a blood-good Japanese maple on the left, which we planted a couple years ago and is putting on such good growth. It's going to fill the space slowly over time, but the juxtaposition, I'm going to use this iris as a pointer, between the blood-good Japanese maple and our amber jubilee ninebark. I love this ninebark. It's my favorite ninebark that we have because it starts out with new growth in the spring is really this color right here, this like pinky orangey color, which I think gives it its amber name. And then it kind of changes to this more chartreusey color until the fall. It also has really interesting bark. You can see in there, it's kind of like a paper bark type. And it is putting on its flowers, which are kind of a little, like you don't buy ninebarks for their flowers. You can see it's covered and bloom, so they're a pretty little pink, which is of interest. It's just not like amazing. The color pop it brings to an area really is. I also love it compared to this. Now this is an oak leaf hydrangea. I do not know what variety, but last year deer got in about this time and ate everything, which was a little devastating. However, this in the fall, this turns like a bright red, and this turns that bright orange, and this is just such a pretty little pop over here. Even though you don't really like the half fall interest, but you plant them more for this one for its summer interest. Look at all these buds. I can't even really show them all to you, but it's going to be such a pretty show in a short period of time. And then we kind of continue on. We have a burning bush, which isn't my favorite. My dad loves it though, so it's here. We have another viburnum. It hasn't opened up yet. It will be pretty once it does. As we kind of round out this corner, we have some beautiful iris. Now these, I do not know what they are. Oh, we also have some trash that I will go pick up. But they're like a very batik-y iris with the streaks. I actually want to take some of these in the fall for my new house. We have some spiderwort here, which I'm only seeing white right now, but last year we actually transferred some purple into this area as well, which I know survived the winter because my mom really likes the mix. And actually, we've got allium here too that aren't opening yet, but they provide a really pretty pop against the sand cherry. Well, we call it sand cherry. It's another wigilia, where it's like a purple leafed one with bright pink flowers that contrast so beautifully with the foliage. We'll go look up there in just a minute. Before we do, as always, we need to give a moment of appreciation for this clematis. Now it is just starting its show. You can see there's buds everywhere, but look at it. I don't know what it is. It's another one that's been here for quite some time. But when these blooms open up, this is a more recent bloom. They're smaller. They've got a lot of a lighter pink around the outside and like a more purpley pink on the inside, and they lighten up to this towards the end of the bloom cycle, they get huge. And then the streaks kind of diminish a little bit more. But we did go after this a little bit in the spring cleanup process. I was a little worried that some of the roots might have been damaged because we pulled out some plants around it because I need to come through and actually extend this plastic. Because as you can see, this is Houtunia, and while it might look pretty, never plant this in your yard. It is excessively aggressive. So we'll probably come in and spray this with some chemicals and lay down plastic very, very soon. Moving along, you can see in our last garden tour, I mentioned two things. One, that we every once in a while would threaten plants to say, gosh, you better shape up or you're going to get shipped out. One of the plants I threatened on video, and this was May, beginning of May, I think, maybe, might have been April, was this Hawthorn, was this Buckeye. And you guys, it is the best it has ever looked. So I guess it listens to my threat. If you can see, it's actually covered right now in pollinators. Their blooms are kind of, up close they don't look amazing, but they actually look very tropical. Oh, look, we have a little bee right here that hasn't woken up for the day yet. He's just sleeping still. But actually, I really love this right here where you see our red sonic bloom wigilia with this Buckeye. Now they also produce really interesting like conifers as well, and we do have to move. There's actually iris in here. It's kind of being eaten up that we'll have to move. But both of these, neither of these looked that great last year. And they look so much better this year. Another thing I mentioned in that garden tour was I needed to remember that this bed at the front of the house that we're entering from the back of the house, it fills up so much. And there really isn't a lot of space in it. Let me show it to you right now. We have some really pretty hostas here and a stilby next to what was at one point a lollipop blue spruce. It's got a lot of pretty icy blue new growth, but look at this, guys. Look how this bed has filled in, especially with these ferns that just look very tropical. We had a lot of wind the last couple days, so there's a lot of branches we actually need to pull out. But you can almost not even see the pavers we put down as stepping stones in here. If we just kind of give it a look, you can see that the hydrangea needs a little bit more work, but these guys, which are incredibles, are doing really well, and everything is looking lush. These ferns also, in my mind, look tropical. They're just like a wood fern. Before we go into the front of the house, I'm gonna make my way into the back, smelling the lilac as I go, to look at the side gardens. Forgot to mention this lilac. Now, the lilac down there was white and has already bloomed out. It is one of the earlier ones. This one is like a light pink and is just starting. It is smelling so good. And it's right next to this path that we've spent a lot of time talking about in the last little while. Oh, you can see it's just behind our garage, but all of these blue spruces are putting on such pretty growth. We have a couple conifers up here, which are a slightly different version. We'd had another tree that died out and we replaced it with this one. So it's got a little while to catch up. But look at this, guys. This is just like a utility area. You're probably hearing some noise. But look at the Japanese ferns, the hellebores. These are toad lilies that are really growing quite well. We also have this, which is just beginning to bloom out. But it's a brunnera, and it's next to our climbing hydrangea. Now, we really wanted to see blooms this year, and I'm not seeing any. We could still be coming. Like there's a couple areas like here. I suspect that's where they would form. We're gonna give this a little more time. Let's threaten it together. If it doesn't bloom this year, we'll give it one we want to see it next season. Because we don't really see what the point is of something on a structure that we see like this just for that. It's a pretty green wall, but that's not what we wanted it for. So It needs to bloom or it will be yanked. But come look with me at our deer resistant sunbed along the back of the garage that we actually even put mulch down not that long ago in, and it's changed so much since then. Look at this. We have a lot of those same woodland ferns. We also mixed in have some cat's pajama nepeta and a couple other things, including this chocolate cherry astilbe. These guys grow quite large, but look at the juxtaposition of this foliage. We have the bright chartreusey green of these new ferns. We have the like softer blue green of the nepeta and the purpley red of the astilbe, and it just looks so pretty. Now, I actually think I'm going to pop this nepeta out and maybe move it either right here or more likely back over here, because I just don't think it's getting quite enough sun there. But we also, so you can see, our beautiful foxglove are just beginning to put up blooms. I cannot wait to see those again. What we have back here, we have, I wonder what that is. I'm not entirely sure. That might have been another foxglove that just didn't do as well. We'll have to leave it, see what happens. We do have some Russian sage. There's one here, one over there. I'm kind of skipping over this. There's a rugosa that's not doing really well. I would be in favor of taking it out, but my dad will probably want to give it more time. So we have a couple of Russian sage that are just beginning to come back. Here's another really pretty view, the different layers here with the nepeta. And this is a great view of the chocolate cherry. It's beginning to put on its bloom spikes. We also have some spiderwort kind of tucked in here and there. These are babies from the city garden a couple years ago that we moved. And it's just looking so, so pretty. It's also backed by a couple more lilacs. Now, a lot of these have already bloomed out, but we have one right here that's a light blue that looks great. And contrasting it on the other side is the bed at the front of the garage. Our arches are looking good. The Brunnera, they're again blooming out a little bit, but they are just going crazy. And they'll soon kind of come and be more foliage interest. You can see they have these really pretty silvery leaves. These are mostly Sailor Hearts Brunnera. The lungwort has also started flowering, which is a slightly different blue to the like forget-me-not blue. And we also have in here a couple of English bluebells that have decided to put up blooms this year. There's lots of different textures going on. We had a bleeding heart that's just about done. You can see this ligularia is looking big and beautiful. And then we have astilbe that are taking over as well. The whole bed is filling out. Some toad lilies, that's that bright variegated thing right here. And as we continue on, there's just more and more beautiful layers. Now this side of the bed actually gets a lot more sun. Oh, I do want to pause. Look at this rhodie. We were so worried it wasn't going to bloom. It's just starting. But as you can see, it is going gangbusters. It's going to be gorgeous in a little while. Now the rhodies at my house have finished blooming. So probably like a week and a half ago. So I'd say this is 2 or 3 weeks behind where we are, just 90 miles south. But you can also see this. I need to look up how to divide bleeding hearts. It's still got some flowers, so I won't do it right now, but it is massive, way too big for the space. I want to kind of spread it around a little bit more. You can also see we've got some more astilbes in this area. This right here, right there, is another chocolate cherry astilbe. It's actually why we bought the ones for the side. But isn't it pretty just to see this bed and that other bed poking through in the back? When these astilbes start flowering, which will probably be in our June garden tour, like the end of June. This bed, I love it in every season. And it wasn't here. Like, this is its 4th season. And I can't imagine what it looked like before then. I just want to kind of pop up here and show you how sweet these little pansies are looking in these pots. We had to move some stuff around because, as you can see, I brought a lot of things with me that are going to go get planted in the vegetable garden quite soon. They actually were in a rain shadow, and I probably should have watered them. as well as gifts for the dogs that I need to bring in. But here's another view of that front bed. Looking full, and I do want to note, it would be remiss of me not to show you that this hydrangea is going to be okay. He's looking good. We also have these heucherella. These are Red Rover heucherella that are providing a different color. We missed the bloom of this rhodie. It only had a couple. And it obviously needs to be fertilized quite well. So I think that's really going to do it for this late May garden tour. You're going to be seeing this in June, but I filmed this Memorial Day weekend. And that's really how things are looking right now. Even from here, I can smell the lilac, which is what we really intended. Oh, I do want to show you this beautiful David Austin rose. This is a Munstead wood. I have one of these. It's covered in blooms and just beginning to pop. Thank you for joining me in this garden tour. I'm going to try to do another garden tour towards the end of June to kind of capture everything, and then we'll do monthly garden tours. And I heard from you guys who commented on one of the videos we did where we added a new bed at the home garden. You guys would like monthly tours there, so those will be starting in June as well. I really appreciate you joining me in this video. If you liked it, please hit that thumbs up button and subscribe, and I can't wait to see you next time. Bye-bye.